Hey guys, it's Selwen here, today talking about Assassination Rogue. And Assassination is all about dots, specifically on poisons and bleeds. Poisons are a passive buff that you can coat your weapon with, having the ability to choose between three: crippling poison, wound poison, and deadly poison. Crippling poison counts as a secondary, meaning you can mix with either wound or deadly poison. In PvE, the most powerful is deadly poison, doing instant damage and applying a dot on a 50% chance per hit. Every refresh will then do more damage. In combination with poisons, there are your bleeds and obviously your resources, energy, and combo points. Most abilities will cost energy to use while at the same time build combo points. Others will spend those combo points in order to deal damage more effectively, called generators and finishers. Garrot, a bleed dot, generates one combo point and is freely usable from stealth, or on a cooldown when used out of it. Rupture, a more powerful bleed and costing combo points to use, a finisher. Then there's your filler and main source of combo points, Mutilate, a simple attack with both your weapons awarding 2 combo points. And your other finisher, Envenom, doing direct damage based on combo points spent, plus provides a buff increasing your chance by 30% to apply your poisons and increasing their damage by 10% from Surge of Toxins. Your artifact ability, King's Bane, is a powerful poison-like attack, doing damage and leaving a dot, and while it's active, every poison applied will increase its damage by 15%, plus its cooldown is reduced per poison application. Your main coolie is Vendetta, increasing your damage to the target by 30%, applying a dot for 20 seconds and gives you energy. There's also a couple of passives: Venomous Wounds. For every bleed damage you do to a poisoned target, you gain 10 energy. Seal Fate, every time you crit with an ability that generates combo points, it will generate an extra. And finally, your Mastery increases poison damage. Now, as for talents, there's actually 2 builds that you can use: the poison-based build, the most common and easiest to use, and the bleed-based build, less common, but as good if used properly. Difference in the builds is practically none, as they are pretty well balanced, but will come down to you and your stats as they will differ. The poison build will focus on mastery, while the bleed build on versatility and crit, but more on that later. If your mastery isn't that high, bleed build will pull ahead slightly, so as a newly dinged character might be something to consider, but over time, poison build will scale better with the stats. Besides that, choose whatever you prefer, as I will talk about both. As for the poison build, in the first tier you want Master Poisoner, a no-brainer, as you get 30% more damage on poisons. However, elaborate planning can also work depending on your character for that 12% damage increase overall. The go-to is usually Master Poisoner though. Second tier, Night Stalker or Subterfuge are pretty even, so choose what you prefer. Subterfuge will increase your Garrot damage when used from stealth, so turning your Vanish into a DPS cooldown. Night Stalker will have the same effect, except it's 50% more damage overall, so you can choose whichever ability to use, like Rupture. If using the Lego Shoulders, you would want Night Stalker, since you would use Vanish with an Envenom. More on that in the rotation. Third tier will follow the same idea. Vigor is usually the best choice for more energy, regeneration, and an extra 50. However, Deeper Stratagem comes close, if not better, again depending on your character, increasing your combo points to 6 and more damage on finishers. I personally recommend Vigor, but feel free to use Stratagem if you want to. Next is Situational, so you can choose whatever. Cheat Death is a safe choice, but I find Leeching Poison pretty nice for survivability, providing a 12% healing on all of your damage from Leech, plus the poison counts as a secondary, so you can mix with deadly poison. On the following tier is once again situational. In rating, for the most part, is unimportant. Thuggy is usually the most worthwhile, resetting your Garrot CD when a target is killed. On tier 6, Toxic Blade will be best, a new ability dealing damage plus increasing your poison damage by 35% for 9 seconds, again a no-brainer. And finally, Venom Rush is a must to provide with more energy from Venomous Wounds. As for the bleed build, all will stay except you want elaborate planning instead, since you don't need the extra poison damage. And then the big change will be on the toxic blade to exsanguinate, a new ability making your bleeds tick 150% faster. As for your multi-target build, nothing much changes since your rotation stays largely the same. Subterfuge might be the option that you might want to use all the time since it allows you to multi-dot easily with Garrote. Is it Garrote or Garrote? Something like that. Alright, with that then, let's talk about your rotation. And first I'll just go over your normal rotation, talk a little bit about your abilities, then move on to cooldowns and opener, and finish with multi-target. So as I said, Assassination is all about poisons and bleeds, so make sure to have deadly poison up at all times. It's really basic but easily forgettable as you need to refresh it every hour. Now starting in stealth is always a benefit to Assassination and Rogue in general. Either you have Night Stalker or Subterfuge, will be a damage increase in your first ability, which is going to be Garrote. And you want to keep it active as much as possible. In stealth, it doesn't trigger a cooldown, but if used out of it when you need to refresh after, it will, but it won't be an issue in single targets as they will line up. It will also give you a combo point. Next, the idea is to apply your next bleed, which is Rupture, but to make it do decent damage, you need to build more combo points. The way to do that is with Mutilate. Mutilates will give you 2 points as it hits with both of your weapons. However, your passive makes your crits generate an extra combo point, which means your Mutilate can generate up to 4 points depending if you crit with one of your weapons or both. So it can be quite random as they can be 2, 3 or 4. Because of that, you need to be careful on overcapping combo points. Remember that you have 5. So for that reason, the general rule with Mutilate for a Rupture is that you only want to cast it if at 0 to 2 combo points or none if at 3 to 5 combo points. This way, you will ensure that you will never or very rarely overcap them. Energy management will also take part in this. You never want to overcap it. It shouldn't really happen, and managing it will come down to how you are utilizing your points and cooldowns that I'll talk more after this. So after you use a Garrote, I'll probably change how I'm pronouncing Garrote or Garrote, so I apologize. You are at 1 combo point, meaning you only want to use 1 Mutilate. Now, if you unlucky and you get 3 points, you can use a second Mutilate, although it's not advisable as that one might crit and you might end up losing 1 or 2 points. That's why the rule. You see where this is going? But in most situations, Mutilate will at least crit with one of the weapons with decent gear, so you most likely get 4 or 5. Whatever happens though, even if you have 3, you use a Rupture. Now you have your bleeds all set up, your auto attacks are applying all of the poisons, and your damage will naturally come out. To improve it even further, you need to use Envenom, so you go back to Mutilates. You now add 0 combo points, so the same rules apply from earlier to use a Rupture, with one minor difference. Here, if you add 3 combo points after your first Mutilate, most of the times you want to do another because Envenom is more worthwhile to use at 4+ combo points, so it's fine to sacrifice a couple if you end up overcapping. Now, you can still use at 3 combo points, but mainly to keep the buffs up that it gives, especially during cooldowns that I'm gonna talk later, so depends on the situation. That said, you might be lucky and get 4 right off the bat from your first one, so you can go immediately for an Envenom. So basically, to put it simple, use Rupture at 3 to 5 combo points and Envenom at 4 to 5 combo points. The damage on Envenom itself isn't overly high, but will give you the 6 or 5 second buff to apply your poisons, which will increase your damage further, and then you essentially keep it up. Refresh Garrote and Rupture at the appropriate times, and use your Envenom when safe, and keep creating combo points with the said rules. Then, depending on your gear and situation, you should be looking at a pretty high uptime on Envenom, just like your bleeds. When refreshing Garrote, you can also take advantage of its 1 combo generation with no risks of crits and overcaps, so whatever the timer you have on it and is ready to use, and you add for combo points, use it, and you get to the 5 for a bigger Rupture or Envenom, depending on what you need at the time, without any risk of overcaps. As for Deeper Stratagem, if you're using it, well, everything stays the same, just replace with what I just said, with one extra combo point in mind, and the risk of overcapping overall is lower. Alright, so for your cooldowns and opener. Well, opening will be pretty similar to what I just talked about, you just have to mix in your 3 cooldowns. So starting up, the same idea as before, start in Stealth for your first Garroth, then go for 1 Mutilate followed by a Rupture. Again, remember the combo point management. Then pop your Vendetta. Not much to it, it will just increase your damage. Then go for your Kingsbane. Now Kingsbane will do increased damage over time due to your poisons. The more poisons you apply, the more damage it will do. So you want to combine with Envenom so you get more of them, and Toxic Blade so you get more damage. However, it lasts for 14 seconds while Toxic Blade lasts for 9, so you want to delay it a little bit, about 4 to 5 seconds, no more than that. So it lasts until the last ticks of Kingsbane, which is where the damage is at its highest. As for Envenom, you want to keep it active as much as you can during it, preferably all the time, again for the poison buffs. So now you need to build points for 1 quickly. Kingsbane gave you 1 to 2 points if it crits, so just use 1 Mutilate or 2 to get to 4+ points to use an Envenom. Then you might be able to squeeze another Mutilate before Toxic Blade, or not, kinda depends on a haste here. Then do Toxic Blade. Then quickly build for another Envenom, so you keep the buffs up. This way, we'll ensure that Kingsbane will do as much damage as possible by lining Toxic Blade and keeping Venom up during it. Now, Vanish also counts as a DPS cooldown, and you want to use it as much as possible. If you with Subterfuge, just use it when you are about to refresh Garroth. Simple. If with a Night Stalker, you would want to use it with a Rupture, so on your next Rupture refresh, preferably if you were lucky to get 5 points without overcapping, you would combo it with a Vanish. If you with Night Stalker and Lego Shoulders, you want to use an Envenom instead, again with the same mindset as with the Rupture. So you want to use it midway through your Kingsbane, making its sticks also crits, so it creates a perfect stack of cooldowns. Also making sure you always crit with Mutilate, giving you a sure 4 points. However, if those Empower Bleeds, be Rupture or Garroth with Subterfuge or Night Stalker, are up, don't refresh them until they are completely depleted. Let them tick, only then refresh them. After that, you just enter your normal rotation, which you want to do the same as previously talked about. Using those cooldowns mid-fight will be easy, just remember the combo points rule with them, since they also generates them. Kingsbane and Toxic Blade will always line up with each other, although their cooldowns timers are different, due to your artifact traits they will line up anyway. And you want to do the same as your opener every time you do want to use them. The only difference now is that you want to do an Envenom before using Kingsbane, or quickly after using it for the same reasons as before. Remember to delay Toxic Blade and the rest stays the same. But if you come to a decision on using Envenom to refresh the buff, or needing to refresh Rupture during Kingsbane, use Envenom instead, as it will benefit it more. As for Vendetta, again, use on cooldown if you're not near the cap of energy, since it will also give you 60 energy, and stack both Kingsbane and Toxic Blade, so you might or not have to delay one of those cooldowns. For Vanish, the same follows. Remember to stack with Vendetta when possible, if not, use it accordingly depending on your talents, just like your opener. There's also your Poison Bomb from Bag of Tricks, but it's pretty random, even though the damage is quite nice, but again is out of your hands. And that covers a Poison build. As for the Bleed build, all is the same, except you don't have Toxic Blade to use, so remove that, but you do have Exsanguinate, making your Garroth and Rapture bleed faster, so you just want to use it as much as possible, also stacking with Vendetta whenever you can, and when you do have 5 or 6 combo points for a bigger Rupture, and preferably after a Vanish for Night Stalker, so essentially stacking as much abilities as you can. So the best way to open up with the Bleed build is to use Rupture at around 3 to 4 combo points. Then when you refresh, it will add the time on top of it, so it makes it last longer for the Exsanguinate damage, as opposed to just using one simple Rupture. So it would be Garath from Stealth to also get boosted from Night Stalker, Mutilate, Rupture, Vendetta, then build combo points for another Rupture, preferably 4 to 5, use Vanish for Night Stalker, and then another Rupture, and quickly follow with Exsanguinate. Then only after do Kingsbane, so you can have a good Envenom uptime on it and not worrying about your bleeds, as now they are just doing their thing. Just don't use it right after reapplying Garath mid-fight, as the dot will drop before the ability comes off cooldown. It will happen anyway, but you want to minimize it as much as possible and let the ticks that are buffed by Exsanguinate and Night Stalker completely deplete before refreshing. Basically, it's giving you these small bursty windows every 45 seconds or so, plus if you have the Lego boots, Vendetta will line up with every Exsanguinate. As for Kingsbane, you always want to use it after you set up your Exsanguinates or before, since one requires bleeds and the other poisons, so you don't want to mix that. Then just keep that up, following the same rules as previously on combo point management, and keep dots and buffs up and using your cooldowns when ready in the same way as your opener. And that also applies to the use of Rupture for Exsanguinates, so prepare them ahead of time. Elaborate planning should have an almost permanent uptime, since it should line up with every Envenom refresh or Rupture, so nothing to worry about. And that covers your single target. As for multi-target, so about 3 targets or more, 2 targets you want to keep a single target rotation anyway and just multi-dot. The only changes above them is that you get Fence of Knives to use that applies your poisons on all targets' head, plus gives you more combo points, if it crits though. So sadly, if you have 4 targets for an example but none crits, you solely get 1 point. Most of the time though, some will crit, so you just have to use them until you get 3 to 5 combo points, and then just apply Rupture on as many targets as you can, at least on high health targets. Don't bother if they are weak and won't tick for a decent amount of time. As for Garath, just use on cooldown. If you do have Subterfuge, you will have a couple of seconds where you'll be able to multi-dot, so it's great in dungeons when you start in stealth. Once they are all with Rupture, keep on using Fan of Knives and using Envenom to dump points. AoE in Assassination can be pretty weak at times, so you just have to analyze the situation to see if it's worth to multi-dot or not, depending on the target health and overall HP pool, to either use Rupture or Envenom. Then after, just hope for a Poison Bomb to have a decent amount of AoE burst, or that the mobs last long enough for your damage to ramp up. As for cooldowns, use if needed, since they are pretty single target focused. And that covers it. Now, as for stats and then a conclusion. So stats will again depend on your build. If you on the poison build, agility, so item level, and mastery is usually the best to increase your poison damage, which in turn also increase Envenom damage. Quickly followed by that is crit for more combo points, then versatility for more damage, and haste is the least valuable. As for the bleed build, there's a change. A crit and versatility will be your priorities along with item level, while mastery and haste the least beneficial. As always, that will change depending on your character, and they will devalue and value at certain points, so remember to sim. In terms of legendaries, there are primarily 3 Legos that will benefit you the most. The boots for more frequent vendettas is extremely valuable, and the same follows for your wrists for more damage at 30% of HP, so creates a sort of execute phase, so great for raid boss fights. The shoulders are also pretty competitive for the crits. In general, they won't change your gameplay except for the shoulders, but I already went over that, and the same follows for your other Legos. As for your tier 21, it won't add anything to your gameplay, so nothing to say, it's basically just passives. In conclusion, Assassination is quite simple to play. Lining up your Kingsbane with your other abilities and combo point management is the extent to playing it properly, or if you with the bleed build, Exsanguinate and your bleeds, along with some micromanagement with Subterfuge and Night Stalker. Rest is pretty much a straightforward spec, mainly about keeping up dots. Your damage overall does require some ramping up unless you get a Poison Bomb in your opener, then your damage will skyrocket. Unfortunately, it is RNG. Multi-dotting benefits you greatly, such as boss fights with 2 mobs or two bosses, I mean, or 3 bosses, where you can easily multi-dot with a Rupture and keeping Garath on one target only. AoE, on the other hand, is just too clunky, but it can work as long as the mobs live long enough. Again, Poison Bomb is the only way to burst in AoE, but there's that good old RNG screwing you up when you most want it, so have fun. You also have quite a lot of utility and a lot of survivability from Feints, Cloak of Shadows, Invasion, and Healing, so remember to use all of that to maintain yourself alive. There's almost no reason for a rogue to die, so remember to use all of that, and to soak with them, especially Feints, alright? And guys, that covers it all. If you're looking for my add-ons, check down in the description. I hope it was helpful. Like and subscribe for more videos like this. Have a fantastic day, everyone, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.